I started properly collecting video games about 7 years ago. I'd been at university for around 6 years or so, and by the time I finished, I felt like I'd worked very hard, I was very skint, and I also felt like I needed a bit of a reward for finally getting a job and earning some money. Back when I was younger, there was pretty much only one present I was ever interested in, that was computer games. They were the treats, they were the surprises. And so it was kind of awesome to be able to actually afford to buy myself these without having to actually wait for my parents or for Christmas or a birthday or something like that. And I think maybe a lot of people have that phase when they first start to cut loose from their parents and earn reasonable money, when they have that kind of spending increase, and for a lot of people they start then just buying lots of video games because it's really fun. I think 7 years ago turns out to, in hindsight, have been a very good time to start the collection. Most of the things that I was buying back in the day were Sega Mega Drive games, and the price of these wasn't too crazy at the time. I remember the vast majority of the games that I was buying were around £20, and the particularly valuable ones would go up to about £40, and those were ones that I'd buy much more selectively, but they tended to be very good games. I think even back then there was this kind of tier system where the majority of the games were pretty cheap. There were a couple of games that kind of spiked up in price if they were particularly in demand, or very high quality games by Treasure for example. And those were the kind of treats or the special ones that I'd buy less frequently. I think for the first few years, or actually for the majority of the time that I've been collecting games, I was never really doing it in a strategic way. It was really just about buying things willy-nilly, things that I remember from the past that were nostalgic, or things that I was learning about online that people were saying, hey, how come you missed out on this game? You need to go back and find it. And that was a really cool thing, kind of exploring stuff that I'd missed back in the day. There was no real tactic to it, and when I started out I didn't really have any idea of which games were worth what and what was a reasonable amount of money to spend. But it was a pretty cheap hobby as far as things go, compared to, for example, guitars or cars that other people like to collect or spend money on. No, it's pretty cheap. But as I said, that wasn't really the factor. The main factor was about having fun and kind of rewarding myself and tapping into something that I'd always liked as a kid. As your collection starts to swell, I think the purchasing starts to slow down because I don't have that much space now. So maybe over the last few years or months, it's been much more selective in terms of what I can buy, and I've been a bit more strict with what I purchase, kind of trying to only buy games that I will actually play, rather than stuff that's going to sit on the shelf. I think that comes down to the old debate about whether you're a gamer or a collector, and I've always considered myself to primarily be the former of those two and not the latter so much. But it was nice to have a nice collection too. Now, recently I've been having a look on eBay at a few sort of new titles and things, and then it came to my attention, well, why don't I have a look at some of the games that I've already bought and see what they're going for these days? And the price increases have been absolutely staggering. Unbelievable how much some of these games are going for now. If I was to pick a couple of games from my collection as an example, the best ones would be Mega Turrican and Gunstar Heroes. Both of those were games that I will have paid about £40 for, which I thought was quite a lot of money 7 years ago. They're now selling for over £100. Mega Turrican I think was around 120, 140, Gunstar Heroes is something similar. And when you first look at this on eBay, you get this kind of surge of happiness, a kind of thrilled feeling where it's like, well, this is awesome, the games that I've bought are actually worth something and I've made some money back here, I've increased the value of my collection. And that's a nice feeling to have at first. I think everybody likes having nice things that are increasing in value, and you may not find it nice if what you'd bought had plummeted and wasn't really worth anything, I don't know. So there was that first impulse of, that's really nice. But shortly after that came the realization that, well, actually, does it even matter to me? Because I didn't buy these games with money in mind or with their value in mind. I didn't really care about what they would one day be worth. And actually, I don't really care now, to be honest with you. I think that, it may be relevant to you if you're planning on selling your stuff, but actually I never really want to sell my games. And even to this day, I've never actually sold any of the games that I've bought since about 7 years ago. I've always kept them, even the games that aren't so good. There's a part of me that just doesn't like getting rid of them for some reason. And I think the other part of it is that actually it's not great for the community and not great for myself from the buying side if things are so expensive. It's kind of like, oh, well, I guess I won't be picking up very many new titles now. My collection's kind of forced to be solidified because I can't really afford or justify spending 120 quid on a Mega Drive game. I'm quite interested in Alien Soldier, and the price of that has gone over £200 now, and it's just, I think the point is that this is for fun and for entertainment at the end of the day, and you're supposed to be buying these to play and to entertain yourself with. No single game is worth over £200. Not really, not when you actually think about what it is. So you've ended up in this really strange position where a little bit of plastic that's actually designed to entertain you and to be played now and then has become something of an antique and a collector's item. And you've now got this situation where it's like a rare market of, very valuable trinkets that only a few number of people can afford to buy. And that must mean that the sort of toing and froing, the transferring of games is slowing down, because I very much suspect that very few people will be willing to part with that much cash, and so it must be slowing and freezing up a little bit. As a buyer, it's kind of sad to see. I actually would prefer it if games had remained cheap, including the games that I own. I'm not really interested in having rare collector's items here, and there are some downsides to it. I've actually been a little bit afraid to use some of my games. It's like, what am I doing? I never used to worry about this, but now I know that they're worth £150, £160. You start to worry, well, what if I damage it? I shouldn't be playing it. And to me, that's taking away from the whole point of it. Of course you should be playing it. That's the whole reason why you've bought these games. They're not there to sit on the shelf or to collect dust or to be something to show off to people, to feel good about yourself in some way. The point is to have things that you treasure and like playing and like experiencing. So certainly with Mega Turrican I've been a little bit reticent, and my limited edition Pikachu N64, that looks like it's worth an awful lot of money now, and so I've been a bit worried about damaging the box and stuff, and it just becomes a bit ridiculous. I don't really want to be in that position. I want to be in a position where this is just about the fun, not about collecting antiques, and not about inflating prices, and all of that kind of stuff to me shouldn't apply to video games. This is one of the few things we do to escape from all of that real world nonsense. So I'd like to know what you guys think about all this. Do you care what your games are worth? Are you pleased if they've gone up in value? Do you plan on selling them one day? Do you see them as collector's items? Or are you perhaps more like me and kind of wish things had stayed a little bit more like they used to be a few years back? So let me know what you think, guys, in the comments below. Take care, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye.